Well, hi, folks, and welcome into another edition of This Week in Pearl. I'm your host, Frank Hutton, and I'm excited to bring you this edition this week. So we're going to go under the dome, and we're going to talk to a little-known agency, I think, that most people don't realize is even there. You've probably heard about it maybe a little bit and never really kind of understood, but today we're bringing in the executive director and the deputy director of the PEER Committee. PEER Committee, which is Efficiency in Government. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this conversation, so stay tuned because when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to PEER. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mayor Wyndham, and I'm thrilled to show you the city creating its own future. Pearl is located in Rankin County, the fastest growing county in Mississippi, and there's no question why. Access to great schools, even better shopping, and unbridled beauty make Pearl a town that truly embodies its name. And with a truly exceptional team of first responders, public safety is another key component of our success. With fantastic housing opportunities from quaint suburban neighborhoods to gorgeous lakefront properties, there's a place for you here in Pearl. You can't beat the location. Right outside of Pearl is the crossroads of the South, where Interstate 20 meets Interstate 55. From here you can travel anywhere within the state or the country. Or you can choose to stay right here in Pearl or experience the small town atmosphere, community pride, and heart of the local residents.
Hi, folks, and welcome back into this edition of This Week in Pearl, where we are going under the dome again, and our very own Senator Dean Kirby has brought in some very special guests today that I am excited to have because I think you're going to find this very informative. So today, Senator Dean Kirby has brought in with us the director of PEER, which we're going to talk about, Mr. Ted Booth, and the assistant director of PEER, Lonnie Edgar. Welcome in, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Frank.
This is going to be fun.
This is going to be great.
Okay.
This should be a lot of fun. I think our audience out there, they are going to find this very informative, don't you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll probably learn a lot myself.
Oh, come on now. Just maybe. So we were talking off camera, and I want to tell this story for our audience outside. We were talking off camera that the director of PEER, sitting right here, was the director of PEER when you were a freshman in the Senate.
Well,
no,
I mean, I was a staffer.
You were a staffer. You were on staff. He was on staff.
That was only 34 years
That's
ago.
where I was going,
right.
34 years ago.
Yeah.
So we are fortunate to have you in here because your knowledge of imparting what you do at PEER is, I think, is very important. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So to help everybody understand,
Sure.
tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and how you grew up, and Mama and them, and all that.
Sure. Well, I was born in New Orleans, but my family moved to Jackson when I was about 2.5.
Okay.
So we moved up here in 1958. So I grew up in Jackson, went to St. Andrews School, and then finished out at public schools because back then St. Andrews didn't go past the 9th grade. And when I finished high school in 1972, I decided to go take a look around, leave the state. So I went to New Orleans to Tulane University for my undergraduate degree in history and for my law degree. I came home and passed the bar in 78, but then decided I really want to go back and do a little more education. So I went off to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and took a master's degree from the Kellogg School of Management up there. And then after a lot of long soul searching, I thought I really want to come back home. This is home. This is where my family lived. This is where some of the best friends I ever had in my life lived. I wanted to come back to Jackson and pursue a career here. I went to work for PEER in 1984, and PEER struck me as being a really great place for me because if you look at what PEER does, if you read its statute, virtually anything in government is under its jurisdiction. And if you're someone like me, you love learning lots of different things about all kinds of subjects. Peer is not necessarily a place for a specialist. It is a place for somebody who loves to keep learning. The staff member who was kind of my mentor at Peer years ago, named Bill Spencer, once described working for Peer as being perpetual on-the-job training. If you're the sort of person who likes to learn and likes to keep learning, it's a great place to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. All right. And so your deputy director you brought with you, Lonnie Edgar, today. Tell us about you. Where are you from? Mom and them, where we went to school, all that.
All right, yeah. I'm pretty much locally grown. Stayed in Mississippi most of my life. I was born in Vicksburg and then actually grew up in a town called Flora, so not too terribly far from here. Little community called Kearney Park is kind of where I grew up.
I know where
Went to
that is.
Tri-County Academy most of my life, and then had an opportunity to actually go to boarding school in Vicksburg. So went back to Vicksburg to All Saints Episcopal School, and it was a co-ed high school boarding opportunity. And so it's kind of fun to get to meet people. We had students from other countries, other places. So in a way, it was kind of like a little sneak peek of college. So I really enjoyed it. So went down to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and got my degrees from the University of Southern Mississippi to the top.
To the top.
So did polymer science and public health, and just really was fascinated about just kind of learning all things, and didn't necessarily know what I was going to do after I graduated. I had a couple different things in mind of kind of where I wanted to go. So when I moved back home, it was actually totally by chance that I stumbled into legislative service. Maybe a little hard for some of the people listening today to know, but I circled an ad in the paper. So it was a physical piece of paper.
You physically
I physically circled a piece
in
of
the
paper. Yeah.
Okay.
And it said evaluator, critical thinking required. And I was like, wow, I like to learn. I like to think about things. And I love the analytics. I got my degrees in polymer science. So I really loved kind of like the scientific method, the background, things like that. Definitely wasn't something that I thought I was going to necessarily like fall in love with. But after a few years, I knew I was in the right place. And about 20 plus years later, I'm still there. So.
It sounds like you two are kindred spirits.
Yeah. Well, Ted hit on a great point. I mean, the best thing about it is like that lifelong learning. If you like to learn and you like to grow.
Like to learn.
It's not stale.
No,
It's
no,
dynamic.
That's right. That's right.
So a lot of my friends even still don't know what we do. So I kind of laugh and say the easiest way to describe it is if you like graduate school. It's kind of like every project is essentially that semester. You just may not get that nice break in between each one. So you put down one project and
There's
go.
no break.
Right.
Right.
There's no summer break.
right.
There's no like
That's right.
fall or
No
Christmas
fall, no
break.
spring.
Yeah.
No, it's just an ongoing thing.
We'll give you a week or so to kind of catch your breath and get your head back above water, and then put you on to the
72
next
hours.
pack.
Here you go.
Sometimes less,
That's
like during the session.
like during the session. That's a lot of fun. And Senator over here, I mean, we all know, I think you, but you know, we know where you come from. I think I didn't want to leave you out over
Well, I'm a Pearl
here.
boy.
You want to tell everybody where you're from?
Where I'm from?
Yes.
Pearl.
Right.
I lived in Brandon for a while.
I know for a minute.
Yeah, well, about 5 years actually. Mississippi College. But where I'm from, I was actually born in a huge town called Lake City, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Lake City had a population of 325.
Wow.
And today I understand it's up to about 400.
No kidding.
Oh.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a growing city. But of course, when we left, you know, they went the tax base.
I know.
But yeah, it was near Jonesboro.
Right, right.
I was born there. All my relatives from Truman and Jonesboro in that area. But we moved lived in the country in a grocery store. Believe it or not, lived in the back of a grocery store and lived out in the country on a gravel road with a cotton gin across the road. Fun place to grow up. We lived there like 3 years, moved to Blytheville, and I went to Blytheville all the way to the 10th grade, and then we moved to Pearl.
And then here you are.
Here I am. And yeah, I'm a Choctaw. I can't root for their football team anymore.
No, you can't.
They don't have one, but that's okay. They have everything else.
Everything
MC, even a good law school.
Well, we appreciate you bringing them in today.
Oh, they're great.
The peer committee, hopefully we can shed some light on what they do. All right, so let's jump in.
Well, they keep us under control to begin with. Let me tell you, these guys do a wonderful job, and I can't tell you what a good job they do and how excited we are to even have both of these guys. They do a wonderful job, and we have occasionally, the Peer Committee, what do we have, 6 on each from the House?
Seven.
Seven from the House, 7 from the Senate. One's in the House appointed by the Speaker, the one's, of course, appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. But occasionally we'll get a couple that think that Peer Committee is a Gestapo and that we're supposed to go after everyone, and that's not the purpose at all. It's just an investigative type committee, and we make sure that people are doing the correct and lawful things. So.
Right. When you pass a statute or a law, a funding mechanism or something, you want a review of that. You bring in peer committee.
They're the guys.
They're the guys.
They're the guys.
They're the ones you refer it to.
Absolutely, and sometimes it's nothing to a complaint, and sometimes it's quite a bit to a complaint. So.
Well, that's right. And I want to get into a little bit of that.
Sure.
You joined in '84,
Right.
as you said, general counsel for Peer.
I worked my way up. I started out as just one of the attorneys and an analyst because I had a master's in management too, so that I could wear multiple hats.
Right.
And then in '98, I moved up to the general counsel's position, and I was in that position for 23 and a half years. And then in October of 2021, I became the director of Peer. Yeah.
Wow. So that's a distinguished career.
I
I know
did a long time.
in my research for
Yeah.
you, just so people will know this, you've held that position of general counsel, and you provide guidance on complex legislative matters for people to understand this. I want everybody to kind of understand, wrap their brain around this, including performance evaluations on policy analysis.
Yeah.
You've been instrumental in shaping Peer's oversight of state programs. Contributing to the reports that influence budgetary and operational reforms. That's across Mississippi government. That's a lot. You've served as counsel to the Standing Joint Legislative Committee on Reappointment, where you advise on the redistricting process for electoral integrity. I think one of the biggest achievements that I was able to find for you was in 2020. You received the Legislative Staff Achievement Award from the National Conference of State Legislatures for your leadership in producing the redistricting law, the Red Book, which I want you to kind of explain that in just a second. It's the 4th edition of a nationally acclaimed legal resource on redistricting. Now, this is something we just went through. Can you tell me about the Red Book?
I'll be happy to. NCSL is perhaps the best nonpartisan source of information on redistricting that you will find out there. NCSL takes it upon itself to educate members of the legislature and staffs on the law dealing with redistricting. Court decisions in particular change every couple of years, and people need to stay on top of that subject. So what we do every 10 years is produce what we call the Red Book, which is a volume of articles, if you will, written by people who work for organizations like mine, who participate in NCSL, which are intended to educate people on the law as in force and effect at the time we publish the Red Book. So it's a reference manual that people can use, and we'll be doing another one in another couple of years. As we say, it comes out every 10 years, and it's a valuable tool for people to make use of.
You use this tool for redistricting?
Oh yeah, well no, I use TED.
Yeah, and I use the book.
And you use the book, so you let him use the book, but I know you just went through this process.
Oh, we did. I was chairman of the redistricting committee, and so I did go through it, and there's so many things that you would like to do that you can't do because of federal laws and state laws as well. But
And these gentlemen provide that.
Yeah, I'll say, look, I'd like to move this over here and that over there, and Ted say, you can't do that, it's against federal law because, and he quotes the sections to me and all that.
Without reading the book, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. He wrote the book.
Because he wrote the book, right?
Yeah, he did help write the books.
But I know when we get into the districting stuff, there's so much, as you said. I don't think people really understand with the federal law. It changes. It's dynamic. It changes a lot, does it not?
And there are, of course, cases before the Supreme Court right as we speak that could make major changes in the way states approach redistricting coming up after the next census. So it is a subject that is always in flux.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here again, the work, it's always changing. It's very
That's right.
dynamic.
That's right. That's right.
Very dynamic, which is, I think, why I
Yeah.
liked communications, because it always stayed
Yeah.
very dynamic. But so the Red Book is very important.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, with the court cases, and then of course with legislative law, and then you're trying to merge all that together,
That's right.
are you not?
That's right. Yeah.
And you have to look at it from a federal all the way through a state. So the Red Book itself, what's the origin of that? Where did that come from?
Back, gosh, many years ago when NCSL, before I was ever involved, decided that this would be a very useful resource. NCSL has always made great efforts to produce materials that can be helpful to legislators and legislative staff. That's pretty much what it's there for, to provide a forum where staff and members can get together, discuss their problems, and also to help come up with some general solutions and assistance. So they're constantly striving to help their member states work through problems. So, and the Red Book was just one of those examples of something that NCSL came up with that they thought would be very, very helpful to both members and staff in carrying out their responsibilities.
Okay. Well, Lonnie, just to touch on you, you have been a member of the National Conference of State Legislatures for quite some time.
I have.
And I think since 2009.
No, thereabouts. That's
Thereabouts.
correct. Yeah.
And you have chaired and vice chaired the Health and Human Services Standing Committee, and you currently serve as the co-chair of NCSL's standing committees, and you've been a member of the executive committee, and a bunch of other stuff that I could keep reading. But you are one of 7 officers on a 63-member board in the Legislative Summit in Louisville, Kentucky. Can you explain a little bit about what you do?
Well, first let me say,
need to update
I want
yourself.
everyone to understand that's not a state committee.
I know, right?
That's a national.
Yes,
it is.
NCSL. It's a big deal. And
Big deal.
I mean, you've been elected the staff vice chair of NCSL at the Legislative Summit in Louisville, Kentucky. So you're one of 7 officers on a 63-member board. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's really exciting to get to work with NCSL. So Ted's already kind of like done a little preview of the history, but it really is that national organization that every state, territory, there's even a few international members as well now,
Really?
as far as Canada and a few other countries. But it's really the organization that supports both legislators and staff. So it really, like Ted's already kind of highlighted, it's there to try to connect legislators, it's there to connect staff. A lot of times we're dealing with the same issues, we're in the same, spaces, but, we may be in a different place as far as how a state wants to approach it or things like that. So one of the most valuable things about the involvement with NCSL has just been kind of getting to meet people from other states. And it's kind of nice to know, like even back in 2009, you get to go meet people from, maybe it's like, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, wherever it is, and say, hey, people do kind of similar things that we do. We kind of have a lot of the same issues. So after working with them for years, I've been very fortunate. I was elected the vice chair in Louisville, Kentucky at their summit. And then I moved up to the staff chair. So I'm actually currently the top staff position on their board. It's governed by 4 legislator officers. So there's going to be an alternating in between an R and a D. So they do keep the balance there. Kind of like we keep the balance with the peer committee. The chairmanship is going to alternate in between the House and the Senate every year to make sure everyone has an equal shot to get to drive the direction of the committee work.
You try to keep it bipartisan.
Absolutely, absolutely. As far as NCSL goes, it is very much a bipartisan organization. There's 4 legislator officers and 3 staffers. So once I moved in as vice chair, actually in celebration of its 50th anniversary just recently in Boston, Massachusetts, that's when I was able to take the gavel and become the chair. So NCSL represents just over 7,384 legislators and then roughly 30,000+ legislative staff. So it's pretty exciting to get to be the voice of 30,000+ legislative staffers right now. So it's been a very busy year, but I'm very excited to get to be involved and very excited to get to represent Mississippi and highlight a lot of the great work we do here in the state as well.
Well, and Lonnie, as I find out when I go to the President Pro Tem's deal with Pro Tems from all over the nation, I find out that we're way ahead of a lot of these states and a lot of things. And you know, we don't hear that on the news, but I'm sure that you hear it. They come to you with problems, I'm sure, and you say, we did that 5 years ago.
Right, it's easy to do that, but that's kind of the beauty of getting to network with other people, like your peers from other states. Is like you get to learn from each other and really make yourself stronger. So, because again, there may not be the same approach that they're taking in a different state that we're taking here, but they're going to learn from me what we've already done and already addressed. And the same thing, they may have like a little like part of their policy or part of their approach to a certain topic or area, and you're kind of like, I could maybe try bits and pieces of that here to see if it's more effective.
It's just one big gigantic sounding board.
It is. It really is. But in the same way, it's so nice because, you know, it's one of those, I say few places. I really think the action right now is definitely happening at the state level, especially with, you know, a lot of the stuff going on at the federal level. But it's so nice to see, like, when Senator Kirby and other legislators come together at NCSL, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're there to have that conversation, you're there to discuss and exchange those ideas and really just have that camaraderie, which is, you know, like I say, it's not seen enough these days.
No, I agree. All right, so let's jump into a little bit of the weeds here. I'm on the peer committee, which you have the honor of being overseer of. I want to tell people the peer committee, formed in 1972, is a joint. So these are for people out there. This is a joint legislative committee on performance, evaluation, expenditure review in a nonpartisan standing committee of the Mississippi Legislature, established in '73. Consists of 7 state senators appointed by the lieutenant governor and 7 state representatives appointed by the Speaker of the House. You have the annual officer elections, rotation chairmanships between the two, as we've talked about. But it's specifically this your performance evaluation, investigation, expenditure analysis, and recommendations for improvements to state government. You operate independently under Code 5365, and you have your own staff, and you publish reports at peer.ms.gov. So just giving everybody a little bit of a definition of what you do, it's all encompassing. So it's, as we were talking off camera, getting ready for this, the peer group, you have legislative mandated reports that you must do, and then some that say Senator Kirby would ask you to do. So walk me through, what does the structure of peer look like?
Okay. Well, the structure of peer, and you touched upon the top of the structure just a minute ago. We have our 14 legislators, our 7 senators and 7 House members, who are the governing board of peer. They are the folks who employ the staff. They're the folks who help set the agenda for our work. They're the people who ultimately will decide to vote a report out or send it back for additional work. Now, once you get below the 14 members, you get to the staff. I'm the executive director, and I supervise the entire staff. And right at the moment, we have 20 staff people. And then below me, I have my 2 deputy directors. Lonnie is one of them, and Jennifer Sebrin is another one. And they manage the analysts who are working day to day on all of these projects that we do. And then we have a couple of other support functions, like the redistricting person who is an expert at geography and demographics, and then we have a business manager and a couple of support people on staff. But Lonnie and Jennifer manage the analysts who are doing most of the project work. And a project can take anywhere from 6 weeks for a small one to maybe as long, close to a year. We did one several years ago that took about a year. And how we do the project really is determined by the scope of the requests that we get, how deeply we have to get into a particular subject, how broad we have to be. Whenever we get a legislative request to do a project, we have to sit back and have serious planning sessions. Lonnie and Jennifer and I and whoever we pick to be a project manager have to sit around and decide, what is this member asking for specifically and how do we address these problems? If, for example, Senator Kirby wanted to know how we go about procuring computer hardware and software for the state, we would then have to sit down and say, okay, how do we break this down? Are we talking about major purchases, minor purchases? Who oversees the process? And we have a state IT agency called the Department of Information Technology Services that manages that sort of thing. What are we going to focus on? Everyday purchases, new types of purchases. So much of computer material can be bought off of a list that they approve that it's like going to the store and buying something. In other cases, they have to tailor a request specific to a particular job. How do we look at how they go about planning the procurement of a computer system? What's the most efficient and effective way to be doing that sort of stuff? So as you can see, the planning process is very, very important on these projects. And every project, as we said, is different, which requires that we all sit back and focus on what we think are the critical factors that need to be reviewed in any particular project that we do. And fortunately, I have a lot of experience. Lonnie has a lot of experience. Jennifer has a lot of experience. Between us, we're probably working on the three of us, about 80 years of experience working at Beer. So we can bring a lot to bear on the process by which we put together plan a project and execute it.
So when you mentioned like ITS and you're talking about the purchasing hardware, software, things of that nature, you're going in, I guess your project manager who you assign, you've basically laid out a plan. These are the topics we want to hit. Now, how does that, what's the next step? What happens after that?
Well, the next step, let's assume, and once again, we have nothing. We don't have an ITS project. I just kind of grabbed it off the top of my head.
Right, we're just going
I wouldn't want to scare anybody out there. No, we're not coming to see you. We're not bombing Pearl Harbor without telling you first. But on the subject of what we do, once we've planned something out, we will then notify the executive director of the agency and say, we have an approved project on the, say, procurement of computer hardware and software, and we want to meet with you. And we will go out and sit down with the executive director of that agency, give them an idea of what it is we're going to be looking at, try to take an estimate as to how long we think it might take to do the review, present them often with a list of scoping material, you might say, basic descriptive stuff about how they're doing their job right at the moment to help us refine our project plan, and then certainly ask the executive director to make available to us key subordinates that we're going to have to go work with, because once we get into the plan, we're going to have to know which people we need to talk to so that we can sit down with them and begin to figure out what are the most important processes to look at? What is the documentation for those processes? How are we going to pull that documentation? How are we going to review that documentation? So, but once again, we have to put the agency on notice that we're going to be there, try to give them an idea of how long we're going to be there, and proceed from there.
That project manager, what kind of skill set does that person require that works at Peer
to
be able to do this?
To do this, you better have several years of experience under your belts. A big project, we have a couple of our analysts who have, close like 15, 16 years of experience with us. They've been in the business for a long time. If we're going to take on a very large project, we're going to give one of those to them. It could be very narrow in scope, and we may have somebody that we think is really a capable new person who is coming up in the world and can probably take on a narrow scope project and do a good job with it. So once again, it depends on what staff we have available at the time and what we think the experience and skills are going to be needed to do the job. So, and we have a lot of choices on our staff.
And I will say it kind of based, like Ted's mentioned, it kind of is based on the nature of the project. But as far as like fundamentally, like, I kind of laughed and said I circled that piece of paper and you needed that critical thinking skill. But really that's kind of the key thing we look for as far as the project management is is, does someone have that analytical capability? That's one of the most, number one things we look for when we do interview processes and things like that. But every project is a little different, and our process is very much structured in the same. So like Ted said, we're going to get that request. We're going to develop some objectives. We're going to try to make sure they're specific, measurable, actionable, time-based, all the smart, acronyms, and put together that team that kind of then starts to kind of learn.
Well, that was the next question that I had. You've got a project manager now. Who works with them, or what's that next level?
Depends on the size of the project. You could conceivably have as many as 3 people working with them, analysts working with them. On the other hand, you could have a small project, and the project manager is going to be the team. Once again, what are the demands of the project? What are the skills of the project manager? So it can vary. One thing we also do that is very important, we have regular project meetings when Lonnie, Jennifer, and I will get in the room, and we will bring in the project manager, and we'll sit back and look at the project plan they've worked and talk about progress. What have you accomplished so far? What have you been finding so far? Don't ever tell them that I'm expecting a final answer on anything right now, but let's see what you think you're seeing right at the moment. Are things turning out the way you expected? Are they not turning out the way you expected? Was there a problem with our planning process? Did we miss something in this? Do we need to go back and revise our plans somewhat? But it's important for us to have these regular meetings with our people so that we can understand just what it is they're seeing out in the field and what they think the problems are that they're seeing, or maybe they're not seeing any problems at all. That's always a possibility. But we have to have regular meetings with them to do.
And I'll add a little bit to that, just because, like Ted said, we do have these regular update meetings and things like that. But one of the kind of the greatest strengths we have at Peer is we do currently hire in at a master's level. So we do expect, some level of maturity and rigor coming into the position. But we like to make sure we hire a very diverse background of people. I mean, we have people with backgrounds in mathematics, industrial psychology, like my background's public health and polymer science. So even if you're not directly working on that team under that project manager, we have, people with CPA, like certified public accounting, things like that. So like, for example, if Senator Kirby's our CPA, I could be working on a project that he's not assigned to, but say, hey, Senator Kirby, I'd love some help looking at this particular
that makes sense
thing.
because you touch so many different areas of government.
We always have to have people who are very flexible, who understand that if they have a particular skill that is quite valuable and may not be in great supply, that they may need to put their project down for a minute and go help somebody else. As I said, I was general counsel for 23 years. I had my work, but I realized anytime anyone on staff has a legal problem, it's my work.
Right.
And I may have something that I think I'm totally responsible for, but I have to put things down and go help somebody else.
Frank, let me say that directors and state agencies change.
Yes.
And it doesn't take that director very long to learn the importance of cooperating with Peer.
Well, you're leading me into my next question, which is kind of that. I was going to ask. All right, so if Senator Kirby here wanted to look at, we'll use your first one, your ITS person.
Sure.
And he just called you on the phone. Hey, look, I want to evaluate ITS. That's not how you do it, right? There's a process.
Sure.
I mean, not just every congressman can just call you on the phone and say, I need you to look at someone. It doesn't work that way.
Once again, for Senator Kirby or any member of the peer committee, I would say at the next meeting when we get to other business, if you want to bring this up, get the chair to recognize you and we can discuss it and then approve it. For people who aren't on the peer committee, I suggest that they write a letter addressed to the chairman or to me, and we'll put it on the agenda. Since they won't be there to speak for themselves, they can do it through a letter, and the committee looks at it, looks at our workload, weighs what they consider to be the merits of the project, and will make a decision as to whether or not to approve it and thereby direct the staff to proceed on the project.
So it comes through basically your executive committee.
Yeah, pretty much, except in this case, it's the whole 14-member committee.
Right, the whole 14-member
has
committee
decides on that. And once again, we have to have a majority vote from both the House and the Senate. So you have to have 4 senators and 4 House members voting to approve the project for us to do it.
And then we have to approve the release of it after that.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, okay. So I mean, it's just I just can't call
No.
you on the phone because I'm upset about something and I want you to go investigate it. It just doesn't work that way.
Now, for certain things, informational requests, we have something we call legislative assistance that legislators can call on, but it may be a fairly narrow thing, like I understand the Supreme Court has rendered a decision on how we go about valuing Section 42 housing in the state of Mississippi. Can you read that decision for me and explain to me what it says? And I can say, sure, I can do that. It's not going to call for expenditure of a vast amount of time. It's not going to call for lots of resources to go out there. And finally, it's not going to put us on the ground inside of an agency doing a lot of work, which could possibly become controversial. It's all about me reading a court decision and telling somebody what I think it says. So that's called legislative assistance. It's authorized.
Which we do often.
We do a lot of that. It's authorized in the statute for us to provide assistance to standing committees of the legislature, and we go about doing that. So that I can do, just take a phone call, say, sure, I'll get on it as soon as I can.
So Senators like the Insurance Committee, and you're looking at laws that have been passed federal, and you want them to evaluate it because that's just a phone call and a sit-down meeting and get some information. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it helps you.
Yeah.
How does that information help you in the?
Well, first off, probably someone has complained to me about something, and that insurance department will say, which Cheney does a wonderful job, but they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, type deal. And so I'll call and say, does the law permit them to do that? And he'll call me back and say no, and I'll call that person and say no because of whatever reason he did,
whatever it is,
whatever law or whatever reason. And first off, he's talked with the commissioner, and they don't do that, and then everything you've heard is wrong. So,
Well, and Senator Kirby touched on that earlier. I really appreciated the way he said when we do these reviews, there may be a problem or there may not be, because oftentimes we do receive requests where there is potentially an issue there, or there's that perceived issue.
Right.
And so we very much, again, as nonpartisan staff, provide that information back.
Because perception is not necessarily reality, or we wouldn't have magicians.
That's correct.
I mean, that's perception is not always reality. So you're right. When it may come back as completely nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That is always possible.
So there's it's not that you can just run into an agency. You have to be asked by basically the committee when they vote on it.
That's right.
This is what we decide. It has to be a majority.
Yeah.
Now, we alluded to this earlier, there are reports that you're mandated that you have to do.
That's true. Yeah.
What are a couple of those?
Okay. When I came to work for PEER, we didn't have a lot of legislatively mandated reports, but over the years we have added quite a few of them, which become part of our regular workload. And one good example, every couple of years we do the Medicaid non-emergency transportation program. We know that Medicaid is supposed to provide transportation to folks who need to get to the doctor's office for routine visits and things like that. And it's always important to make sure that that sort of thing is being done both efficiently and effectively. Are the people getting their rides? Are they getting their rides on time? Obviously, we want people to be able to get to the doctor because preventative care is a lot less expensive than emergency care. So you want to make sure this program works well. And at one point in time, the legislature thought we ought to go look at this on a regular basis to see how well it's being done. That's a really good example of a focused, mandated project that we look at on a regular basis just to make sure it's working reasonably well.
Does the same project manager handle that every other year, or do you swap that around a little bit?
Usually Lonnie would probably be the deputy director who would oversee it because he's worked on it several times.
I see.
But the project manager, it'll depend on, is the last project manager busy doing something else? Is the project manager still with us? People do move on from here
Sure.
and go on to go
I was
for
just thinking
other
from
things.
different
Yeah. Yeah.
perspectives.
But
You know,
we-
people bring different
yeah.
perspectives.
When
That's
we
right.
when we assess the workload for either the given period of time
Yeah.
or the year,
Yeah.
whatever time frame it is, we do try to make sure the same people get assigned to the same review, because while it's great to get to learn something new,
Yeah.
it's such a an asset and value to have that person who's already done that project. Maybe it was
knows
3
what-
years ago.
If we can
kind
get
of
'em-
knows the ropes.
If we can get them on it, it can save time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's all about efficiency,
Yeah,
right?
right,
That's,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
in your
it's part-
that's
yeah,
in
yeah,
your founding.
Yeah. If we can put the same project manager on that thing, that means there's a shorter learning curve,
Sure.
and they'll be able to go in and
Sure.
probably do the thing faster than they would be able to do.
And once you generate the report, the peer committee has to vote the report out.
Yeah, that's right. We present it to them, and here's our process for that. We have a two-stage release process. We will brief the committee on a completed report. When the briefing is finished, the project manager who's handled the briefing will request that there be a motion and a second and a vote to let us go to exit conference with the agency. Just because we've written a report, it doesn't mean that the agency doesn't get a chance to review it, point out possible factual errors, and raise any other concerns that they might have about the report. And it is the custom also to allow the agency to prepare an agency response that will be published in the report. And generally speaking, that is followed. The rules would permit not publishing an agency response, but the practice has been to publish an agency response. So not only does the committee review it and decide whether it's ready to go beyond draft stage, but still the agency gets a crack at it, they get to review it, and they get to file a response. And then when all that's in, we bring it back to the committee and say, here's the response, here's what they said. Staff believes it's time to go to final release on that, and if the committee concurs, they'll vote it out and it becomes a report.
If the committee does not concur, what happens to it?
Well, if the committee didn't concur, they might ask us the question, could you go back and do a little extra research on this? And if they ask us to go back and do some research, yeah, we'll go do some more research and bring it back to them at another time.
Does that happen often?
Very rarely.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
So would you say majority of the time the reports are voted out?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And would, yeah.
But there are those.
If it gets that far, it's
Yeah.
probably going to
It's
come
probably,
out.
Yeah.
But that is part of the reason we do that two-step process that Ted mentioned
Yeah.
is, we don't want to surprise anybody. I mean, our goal is to
Yeah.
make government
Yeah.
more efficient and effective to make the best use of taxpayer dollars. So as we,
Well, we were picking on ITS, and we're not,
Right, right.
we're not picking on
Yeah.
ITS.
No, we're not.
We're just
No.
using that as an
Yeah.
example because they're a
It's
state.
what came to mind a moment ago when you asked me a question.
Yes, and we're obviously, but we're not picking on ITS. Clearly, we're not.
Yeah, no.
But using that same
Yeah.
that same process here, if you went into the ITS agency about that computer and
Yeah.
software purchasing,
Yeah.
and now you're at that point of that exit conversation, you're inviting ITS in and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, okay, here's our
Yeah.
report.
Yeah.
What's your assessment?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not trying to throw anybody under the proverbial bus.
No, and our position on that is if we made some factual errors here, if we said, for example, that last year you all helped 13 agencies developed requests for proposals for computer hardware, and it took you an average of 14 months to do this, is that correct? If you say, no, that's not correct, I'll say, well, bring me the numbers so that we can look at them and determine how it was or why it was that we miscalculated this. That's an example of a factual error. If you simply don't like what we said, my response is, well, that's what an agency response is for. If I'm wrong, I want to know how I'm wrong, bring me the documentation and we'll change it, because the last thing I want to do is put anything in a report that's not correct. But a lot of times people just not like a report, may not like the tone. Well, that's what a response is for. Tell the people why you don't think that all in all your agency is not performing well or something like that. And you can put it in your response. Yeah,
Right. Just because you don't like the report doesn't mean it's not factual.
that's right. That's right.
And that, so does peer get and I'll let both of y'all answer. Does Pierre get a bad rap? Are y'all perceived as the boogeyman maybe, or do you get and it's really not true. I mean, because as you said, you're trying to be efficient in government.
No, they have such a good reputation of being accurate. No.
Yeah.
But you talking about, I mean, it's almost like you're getting audited almost.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I
they
would
are.
say this, and as Senator Kirby said, we strive for accuracy, but still, I don't think an agency director wants to hear, oh, by the way, Pierre's coming in this morning to talk to you about a project. They would probably rather we not be there.
Yes, what I'm saying. Yeah, probably rather you not.
Yeah. We're not going to make their day, but I think over the years we've worked very hard to be very fair and very factual. You may not want to see us, but in the end, I think you're going to conclude that we have given you a fair opportunity to, point out, what's working well inside of your agency, what isn't working well inside of
Well,
your agency.
that's where I was going next with
Yeah.
my question was this very thing. And let's just keep ITS.
Sure.
Let's say I'm newly appointed the ITS director.
Yeah.
And would I have the ability to reach out to you or reach out to Lonnie and say, hey, look, I want to know where my inefficiencies are in ITS. Can an agency head request you to come in?
In theory,
And-
that could happen.
Okay, in theory.
In theory, it could happen. In practice, no. There was an instance with a small agency several years ago when their board chairman asked us to come in and look at that agency. But rarely does that sort of thing happen.
Well, with what you guys do, and Lonnie, help me out here with what you do. Running project, you have such experience in being able to identify immediately where you're inefficient, where you're spending maybe more money than you should. Would that not be a wise action?
Well, like Ted said, it doesn't happen often. There's typically going to be a request prompted from somewhere, whether it's a person, an
Sure.
individual, things like that. But kind of circling back a little bit to your prior question on, like Ted mentioned, we're probably not the person they're excited to see show up during the day. But I will say Senator Kirby kind of also touched on this. It doesn't take long for the new agency person to kind of know to cooperate. I feel like maybe the first time you interact with us, we know we're an extra step you have to take. We know that, we're not something you plan for, potentially. But I think after you kind of work with us for the first review or the first period, you kind of understand we're really there to try to help your own operation.
Well, that's
your own
exactly
agency
what I'm
get
thinking
better.
about. I mean, I'm thinking sitting here as an agency head, and Dean has requested that they come in and do a peer review. I'm sitting here thinking, why am I going to be upset about that? Matter of fact, I would be great. What can I help you?
If you're a brand new agency head, you probably wouldn't be terribly upset to see us come in. But once again, you probably wouldn't be requesting us to come in. But let's say if a member of the legislature asked us to and the peer committee voted it out, I would think that a brand new agency head would not be terribly disturbed to see us come in, except insofar as we do take up time and resources and effort and stuff like that. They'll have to spend time dealing with us that they could have expended on other things. But at least a brand new director would be able to say, well, anything they criticize occurred prior to my watch.
It's not my fault.
And we will correct it.
That's right. That's right.
And we
That's right.
will correct.
That's
But
right.
I'm just looking at it because
Yeah.
being an agency, a department head here
Yeah.
in the city, I'm always liking efficiency
Yeah.
and people pointing out, hey, this is where you're probably being inefficient. This is probably where
Sure.
you're actually breaking the
Yeah.
law. It's not that you're trying to here again throw me under the bus. I look at it from okay, well, what do I need to do differently? Maybe it's just something it's an oversight, and you're pointing it out. To me, that seems very beneficial.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but
No,
it
a
just,
good director, you're right, a good director or elected official even would be very, I would think,
with the
happy
knowledge that
to work with
that these gentlemen bring and their agency, it's what you do every day.
Yeah.
It would make sense to me, even if I've been the director of an agency for 20 years, it would make sense to me just because I've been doing it this way for 20 years doesn't mean it's the right way of doing it.
Right. And we get to see a little bit of that. I mean, I feel like towards the end of the review, it's typically very much where we want to see the recommendations, and the agencies or the entity getting reviewed gets to see those recommendations as part of that exit process. So again, they're not surprised by anything we put forward. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is whenever the committee votes a report out, one step in our process, this custom, is also a follow-up. So we will actually go back in typically 6 months later and just inquire with the agency or the entity, like, hey, have you had the opportunity to implement any of these recommendations? What progress have you made towards trying to make these improvements? Because really two fundamental things drive the work we do. Are you doing things right, and are you doing the right things? So we really try to focus again.
Well, that's such a powerful statement.
It is, yeah.
And so we try to help the agency do that. I kind of we try to help the agency be better than they're already doing, because a lot of times there's some great programs out there, and sometimes those are the most well-kept secrets because they're working so well.
Nobody really knows about
Right. So we try to write about everything, but again, it really depends on, like Ted mentioned, that scope and that focus of the review is kind of what we're looking at and what we're hoping to help improve.
And then there's those instances where, I think we talked about this off camera, where you get some whistleblower or something like that. There's a disgruntled employee who's no longer, that may have been high up in the agency, and then next thing you know, you're in there doing a different type of investigation. Those probably aren't as well received, I would imagine.
There are times when you go out and go into the entrance conference and an executive director will say, I know exactly why you're here. And he may not.
Right, but he says he does.
But he says he does.
Right.
Because that director knew that he had a high-level employee or a mid-level employee who was not happy, and that person may have even said, oh, you'll be hearing from somebody soon about this. And they're waiting to find out, will it be us or the state auditor or who will be coming out there?
It could be you and all of them.
It could be us. It could be could be the ethics commission. It could be any number of people. Yeah.
And so that's probably not a very well received conversation, I wouldn't think.
No, but transparency and efficiency is their purpose.
Sure.
I mean, it is. They, there's no. Well, there are secrets, I guess, things you can't release, but that aren't true. But yeah, I mean, people need to. Well, I'm really glad they're here, because I think the average citizen of this state needs to know that we have someone watching over or watching out for them at all times, other than just their legislator or just the director or whoever. And I think it's wonderful to have the peer committee. There are times that I've thought, I wish I wasn't on this committee because they might want to do an investigation of someone I may know.
Well, and it's definitely, to be like Senator Kirby and the other members, it's a job for a workhorse.
Yeah.
And there's work that goes into it. It's not a job for a show horse.
Right.
And
that's right.
if you sit on this committee, you're going to catch some grief from people from time to time. Why are you looking at this? Did you have to do this? And I understand when we get involved in these things that Senator Kirby and the other senators and House members are probably going to get phone calls about this.
Yeah, but if the director and the agency is doing things properly, they shouldn't worry about it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I can see where there's both sides of this, but in my mind's eye, after hearing what you guys do, it really makes more sense. I would be welcoming for peer to come in.
Tell me what I can do.
Because it's going to make, I would think, as an agency, it's going to make us better. You know, it's fresh eyes on it.
And I knew a couple of agency directors who were very sophisticated, who would look at me when I would come in and say, well, this was back years ago when I was a project manager, and say, yeah, it's going to take a little time to take care of you guys here, but in the end, it's going to be beneficial to me because I'm going to learn some stuff and you're going to learn some stuff, and we may make this thing work better than it is right now.
That's right.
And as I said, you've run into a few agency heads who are very sophisticated who look at things like that. And often they're also, you got to be careful too, because sometimes they're very polished people too who are trying to steer you in one direction and maybe not in another one too. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful. But once again, I appreciate running into people like that.
But,
Right.
but you've also had those others that
Yeah.
say, we're not going to talk to you.
And that's the worst thing to do, because I go back to the office and say, what on earth is going on over here, and why do they not want me to learn about it?
Right. What do they not want me to know?
That's right. That's right.
But there's
And-
nothing that's stopping you by legislative mandate. You're going, whether I'm participating or not. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Well, we've actually had directors come before the peer committee.
Yes, we have.
Not many, but where
Right.
they didn't want to cooperate, and so the committee would say, okay, we'll bring them
Yeah.
in. We're
That's
going to
right.
talk to them.
That's right.
And then they begin to catch on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you may not work here after this conversation's over.
It's possible.
That may
They catch on pretty
They
quickly.
catch on pretty
and
quick.
And they're willing to do whatever we need to.
Now, this is state agency only, right? You don't really look at any. You don't go into counties.
We could, by statute, our mandate is broad enough.
Is it?
We could look at municipal government, county government, economic development districts. Rarely do we do that. We did one on certain aspects of road management down in Harrison County back about 8 years ago.
Really?
And that's
Road
the
management.
last one. That was the last county government one that we've looked at before. But we've done natural gas districts before. You know, we've looked at certain aspects of school district operations before. So the law is broad enough to allow us to do that. But generally speaking, we're going to be looking at state
You're
agencies.
going to stay state.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're mentioning like the road districts. Is that, and not to get into that, but would that be because somebody approached and said, hey, maybe there's some misallocations of funds?
Things
kinda
like
what-
that can arise.
And so you're like, okay, I want to see what's going on with, maybe it was a grant that was given for roads. 'Cause
Some-
there's a lot of grants that go to road projects.
Yeah, right.
And so it's looking at like, was the grant handled correctly?
Yeah.
Would that be
Yeah.
a reason why you
Yeah.
would get down into like a county
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
That
sure.
would be one of the
Yeah,
reasons.
we do different types of reviews too. It could be
Sure.
like a management review, could be a
Right.
specific
Yeah.
programmatic review. So there's a couple different types that we can do. And then they mentioned earlier, which was great to mention, the other entities like ethics, auditor's office, things like that. You know, a lot of times we'll get these requests in, and Senator Kirby and the committee can say, hey, that's sounds like something that, you know, has potential interest. Maybe that's not a fit for us at the peer committee, but maybe that's something we could refer out to someone else as well. So we do try to partner with,
Yeah.
I
and
see.
you know, forward certain things. If it's
Yeah.
maybe an ethics issue, we send it to ethics. If it's something that maybe just like, you know, a single audit or a financial audit
Yeah.
would benefit from, we'll refer it upstairs to audit and things like that.
Or the
So-
Attorney General.
Or the
Yeah,
Attorney
that
General.
could go to the AG's office also, yeah.
So what would you say out of would be the percentage that you actually take out of all the requests? Obviously, you don't take 100%. How many would you say on a yearly basis that you actually take?
I think it really depends on the year.
It
depends on how many we
yeah.
receive.
And,
really.
and even then,
we
there's
take the vast
there,
majority.
we'll take
Oh, do
the
you?
overwhelming majority of them, or we might say we can do this, but considering prior commitments, it might be early next year before we can get to it. Or something.
You may have to push it
Yeah,
off.
we may have to
So
push. Yeah,
we'll do it,
yeah.
but it may be
Yeah,
next
right,
year before I
right.
get to it.
Yeah.
I got it. But
Yeah.
you take the majority of
Yeah.
what's put
Yeah.
before the committee.
Yeah.
Right.
So it would have to be just completely ludicrous to not take it. Then is what I'm hearing.
And sometimes we get some that are ludicrous.
Yeah, I've called before and said, I mean, this really happened once years ago. MDOT, they were spending some money and doing some things, and I didn't think that's what the purpose was of the money that we appropriated. So I called, and he called back and said, yes, they can.
Yep.
So,
Sorry, Senator.
yeah. Well, I just wanted to make sure they were doing the right thing.
Sure, right. Of course. I mean, you're there to make sure that everybody's following the law.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, right?
Right.
We're following the law as written. You're not writing the law. You're not making a judgment on the law. You're just, are you following it? Is that
Are you
basically-
are you following the law? And even then, maybe you're following the law, but could you do it more efficiently or more effectively?
more effectively?
Yeah.
And you employ people help people understand
Yeah.
what efficiency looks like.
Right, and we try not to take any direct policy positions. We
Yes.
give all that information back to our committee and back to the full legislative body to allow them to either, if there's legislative recommendations to consider, whether there's administrative recommendations for the agency itself to consider.
Or both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or both.
that's right.
Or both. We try to give that information back to let them kind of like decide what the best course of action is. Because again, we're a nonpartisan staff, so we want to make sure that the legislature as a whole is as well informed as possible to make these decisions.
And laws and regulations get changed directly out of this, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Every year.
Every year. I was sort of say that. They'll actually make recommendations to us and give us the list, and whoever the chairman is usually introduces the bills to make changes for different agencies.
Do you have them in to present sometimes in the committees?
Well, we have had, yes.
To actually present and have the committees ask direct questions?
Yeah.
Do you ask?
According to
Yeah.
the committee and the.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
often in the past, so many of our bills on the Senate side are referred to AET.
Oh, yeah.
And it was almost, I could almost predict that
That's
the chairman of
accountability-
AET would call
accountability
efficiency and
and
transparency.
efficiency,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I could almost predict when the chairman would call and say, can you guys come over here and brief on the reports that you issued that relate to the following bills? And say, sure, we'll be over there and we'll do a quick rundown of what
You'll sit in the committee
precipitated.
hearing?
Yeah, and we will go give testimony and say, yes, we're familiar with Senate Bill 2222. It grew out of peer report number 755, and in which we recommended the following things, and we did this because of X, Y, and Z. And then they will try to understand why it is that we recommended the piece of legislation that's before them.
I got it.
Yeah.
Very beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very beneficial. Golly, I like getting in the weeds and minutia and policy, and some people don't. I mean, but I do like it, and I have found this to be very informative
Oh, good.
and very eye-opening. I hope our audience has as well, don't you think,
Well,
Senator
they
Kirby?
they need to know there's a big eye in the sky watching out after them.
Here we go again with the.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are. I mean, these guys and that committee is making sure people in the agencies are performing like they're
Right.
supposed to perform.
And here again, like I said, most people don't understand what is peer committee. Who is that?
That's right.
What are we talking about? Because the majority, I would think, of the population in Mississippi has no idea what you guys did. Now they have an idea of what you do, and that's. I don't think that's any fault of necessarily anybody. I think you pointed out before we started taping again that way back in the day before we had these little devices and everybody got their information off of Twitter.
Right.
You were in the newspaper and Peer was known more then in black and white, and now it's probably not as much. And it's not for the sake that you're not putting the information out. You can go to peer.ms.gov and you can read all about what you do. And I encourage people do that. Go to peer.ms.gov. Go read all the things that they're doing, and it's a lot of information, but it's very informative, and you do learn a lot from what you guys do. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you agreeing to come in with the senator.
And we've enjoyed the opportunity that you've given us.
No,
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks again for taking a plug on the website, because all of our reports are the public's, domain. They're all uploaded. We've tried to make them concise with the one pagers so people can quickly digest what it says.
And I appreciate that. Here we efficiency again, because getting ready for this interview, I like most people. I knew about Peer. I have a general idea of what you did, but here I'm really getting some solid information as to how this actually works. And I'm actually thinking, golly, I would like Peer to come into my own. Can we? Because I'm thinking, you know, we could be a little, you know, the way you structure your, I'm thinking, why don't you come in and help me? I mean, you know, you come walk through and let me see where I can be more efficient, because it just makes more sense.
Well,
you know?
the report may be several pages, but I will tell you one that's going to do that. There is a summary at the end.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
And that's a lot easier to read.
And I do like they put the conclusion at the top
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
of the report.
Yeah.
And that's really nice.
We've been in this business a long time, and we've learned how to make them reader friendly.
Yes.
We've done really a lot of hard work on that. And you can go
You
back
can
and look
tell.
at you can go back and look at peer reports from 1973, and they look like it was sort of like a student type term paper. And now we've gone with more graphics,
Yes.
good summaries,
Yes.
bottom line conclusions, things like that, to make it easier for people to get what they need to get out of it.
Yeah, you've got the high level, the
Yeah,
30,000
that's right.
foot view
That's
on
right.
the conclusions and
Yeah.
the brief at the
Yeah.
top, and then if you just want to get into
Yeah.
the processes
Yeah.
that you went through, you can
Yeah.
read the entire 95-page
You could,
report
and the appendices too.
and the appendices too.
You may mention that we're having a school this week, as a matter of fact. Isn't it Thursday that we're having? Isn't it this
Oh, our
week?
training from the
Training.
Levin
Yeah.
Center for
Yeah,
Oversight
right.
is coming
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah.
Explain that. What is that?
Well, it's a training program that is put on by the Levin Institute for Democracy and Oversight up at Wayne State University in Michigan. And they have a program that is dedicated to helping legislatures develop their oversight capabilities. So, and we're doing a training program for members of peer and the AET committees and staff members on Thursday with these folks.
Oh, okay.
Trying to, you know,
Well,
yeah.
I hope the first thing they say is keep your mouth shut. All these things that are going on, you know, we have had a few that like to talk.
Sure.
And I don't say leak things, but leak can be a problem because we may not have a problem. And here they go
Right.
talking
Now-
about,
now you've
oh, we're
created the
investigating
problem.
so-and-so and we're going to do this, and you can't do that. You wait and get the final results, and
Yeah.
if
Yes.
someone's guilty, they're guilty. If they're not, then just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much. I mean, we could, I literally could keep talking about this forever. But I do know that we do have to find a spot to stop. And,
There.
but I do appreciate again you guys putting faces
Sure.
to what you do,
Sure.
explaining
Yeah.
hopefully to people
Yeah.
out there listening. I do encourage them to go to
Yeah.
peer.ms.gov. I went. I spent several days on the site reading through. I even had to put it into some AI to try to help me out, consolidate some information, because you put out so much.
And it's factual.
And it's factual.
It's going to be accurate. It's very factual.
You know, if I didn't learn anything else today, that is very true. I did learn it's not partisan.
No.
It's going to be facts only. It's going to be what you discover, and then it's going to be recommendations based on your assessment of the data, and that's what you're going to put out. You're not going to put a spin or a bias or anything to it. This is just the report. And did I get that right?
I think you got that right.
Yeah, and they do a great job.
Well, I appreciate it again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you very much. Will you come back sometime and?
Of course we could.
sure, anytime you'll have us.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to step aside, but when we come back, we're going to talk about what's actually going on this week in Pearl. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mayor Wyndham, and I'm thrilled to show you the city creating its own future. Pearl is located in Rankin County, the fastest growing county in Mississippi, and there's no question why. Access to great schools, even better shopping, and unbridled beauty make Pearl a town that truly embodies its name. And with a truly exceptional team of first responders, public safety is another key component of our success. With fantastic housing opportunities from quaint suburban neighborhoods to gorgeous lakefront properties, there's a place for you here in Pearl. You can't beat the location. Right outside of Pearl is the crossroads of the South, where Interstate 20 meets Interstate 55. From here you can travel anywhere within the state or the country. Or you can choose to stay right here in Pearl or experience the small town atmosphere, community pride, and heart of the local residents.
Hi, folks, and welcome back into This Week in Pearl. I'm your host, Frank Hutton, and that was very informative. I want to thank our own Senator Dean Kirby, who sits on the peer committee, for bringing in the peer director, James Ted Booth. We want to tell him how much we appreciate Director Booth coming in. He is the executive director of peer, and also bringing in his deputy director, Lonnie Edgar. We want to tell both of them thank you. We really appreciate that conversation. I think it's very interesting how you go about your reviews, and then it's very informative. So thanks again. I really do appreciate you guys, and thank you, Senator Kirby, for having them. All right, so what's going on in Pearl? Well, I can tell you a lot. All right, so Pearl's going to be home this week. Pearl Pirate Football returns home after we had that exciting win in Meridian this past Friday night. Pearl's going to be inviting in the Cougars from Northwest Rankin. So you want to come out and support Pearl Pirate Football on Friday night as the Northwest Rankin Cougars are coming to town. Should be a lot of fun. Also, just want to remind everybody, come out to the Coaches Show at Mugshots every Monday night when we film that. You get to meet the kids, you get to meet the coaches, and enjoy a good meal for Mugshots. But it's a lot of fun. We start filming at 6, and of course, we air the show on Wednesday evening. All right, what else is going on? Well, something big is happening this month. The annual Trick or Treat Street Halloween event is scheduled for Saturday, October 25th, starting at 6 p.m. It is a Pearl Main Street event, and it's held every year right out here in front of City Hall on Old Brandon Road. We literally shut the street down, and local businesses, churches, and organizations, they set up all kind of tents that are out there and things for kids, and they hand out candy. It's a very safe event, and thousands of people are here for this event. It is the annual Trick or Treat Street Halloween event by Pearl Main Street. Again, that is October the 25th. It's going to happen right out here in front of City Hall. And then afterwards, when it's all over, there's going to be a nice movie brought between the library and our gold room area in that grassy area. They're going to set up the big movie screen right there, and we're going to show Hocus Pocus 2. So it should be a lot of fun, be great. Bring your chairs out. It'll be a lot of fun that night. It's a great night to enjoy just being in the community. Looking forward to it. October the 25th starts at 6 p.m. Hey, look, I've had a great time bringing this to you. I want y'all to stay tuned because there's a major announcement coming up about the Christmas parade that's going to happen soon. So stay tuned because we will be announcing that. Anyway, I've enjoyed today. Thanks again to our guests. Really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you next time. Have a good week.